My first year at Hogwarts. Chapter 1, The Arrival. Annalise Dawson stepped off the Hogwarts Express and into a world of wonder. The air was crisp, filled with the scent of pine and damp earth, and all around her, the other students buzzed with excitement. She looked up, and her heart skipped a beat. The castle was even more beautiful than she'd imagined, towering over the grounds with windows that glowed like stars. "First year's this way," boomed a warm, friendly voice from ahead. Annalise turned and saw Hagrid, the gamekeeper, waving them over. He was so tall he looked like a mountain with a beard, and he wore a smile that felt like a hug. With Hagrid leading the way, Annalise and the other first-year students walked to the lake, where small boats were waiting. She climbed into one, feeling a mix of nerves and excitement. As the boats began to glide across the dark water, she held her breath. Ahead of her, Hogwarts Castle shimmered like a dream. The boats moved silently, creating ripples that sparkled in the moonlight, and for a moment, Annalise felt like she was floating through the stars. Beside her, a girl whispered, "It's so magical. I've never seen anything like this." Annalise nodded, unable to speak. Her heart felt full as they drew closer to the castle's entrance. The boat docked, and they followed Hagrid inside, through tall doors that creaked open to reveal the grand entrance hall. It was a sight to behold, towering arches, polished stone floors, and floating torches that cast a golden glow over everything. Annalise could hardly believe she was really here. As they walked, her eyes caught on an old, worn tapestry depicting a battle between wizards and magical creatures. She felt like every corner of this place had a story to tell. The students were guided into the great hall, where hundreds of floating candles hung in the air, lighting up the long tables filled with food and happy faces. Above, the enchanted ceiling showed the night sky, filled with stars that twinkled softly. It felt like stepping into a magical painting. Annalise found herself standing in awe, her head tipped back as she took in the entire scene. She was about to sit down when she accidentally bumped into a boy with messy brown hair and a nervous smile. "Oh, sorry," she whispered, embarrassed. He grinned, shrugging. "No problem. Can you believe this place? It's like a dream." Annalise nodded, feeling a bit of her shyness fade. She hadn't expected to make friends so quickly, but something about his warm smile made her feel at ease. His name was Evan, a fellow first year in Hufflepuff, and the two of them exchanged quick introductions before the sorting ceremony began. When the sorting hat called her name, Annalise felt her heart race. She walked up to the stool, placed the hat on her head, and held her breath. Curious and brave," the hat murmured, its voice soft in her mind. "Better be Ravenclaw." Applause filled the hall as Annalise joined the Ravenclaw table, where her new housemates greeted her with smiles and cheers. She couldn't stop grinning as she looked around, finally feeling like she'd found her place. Chapter 2, A Midnight Wander. That night, Annalise lay in bed, wide awake. Her dorm room was quiet, filled with the gentle breathing of her new friends, but Annalise couldn't sleep. Her mind was buzzing with everything she'd seen, the enchanted ceiling, the floating candles, the mysterious halls. She had so many questions, so many things she wanted to explore. Hogwarts felt like a treasure chest full of secrets, just waiting to be opened. Finally, she slipped out of bed, careful not to wake anyone, and wrapped herself in a warm cloak. She tiptoed down the spiral staircase to the common room, where a fire crackled softly in the hearth, casting flickering shadows on the walls. The room was empty and quiet, except for a faint, silvery glow near the window. Annalise froze, her heart skipping a beat. There, floating by the window, was the Grey Lady, the Ravenclaw house ghost. She was a tall, graceful figure with a calm, wise expression, and her ghostly form shimmered like mist in the moonlight. "Couldn't sleep, could you?" the Grey Lady asked, her voice soft and echoing. Annalise managed a small nod, feeling a bit shy. I just can't believe I'm really here," she whispered. "Everything feels so magical." The Grey Lady's eyes softened. "Hogwarts is a place of wonder, indeed. But remember, it holds many secrets, some hidden away for centuries. Curiosity can lead to great discoveries, but also to dangers. Be careful which paths you choose to follow. Annalise felt a chill, but her curiosity only grew. Are there really hidden rooms and passages? She asked. The Gray Lady smiled faintly. There are places in this castle known only to a few. You may find them in time, but only if you are truly meant to. Before Annalise could ask anything more, the Gray Lady drifted away, disappearing through the wall. Left alone in the quiet room, Annalise felt a thrill of excitement and a tiny flicker of fear. She knew then that her journey at Hogwarts would be filled with mysteries, and she couldn't wait to discover them all. Chapter 3: First Lessons and New Friendships. The next morning, Annalise felt a surge of excitement as she headed to her first class, Charms with Professor Flitwick. The classroom was bright and filled with shelves of magical objects, each one sparking with a bit of charm. Professor Flitwick, a tiny wizard with a big heart, greeted them with a cheerful smile. Today, we'll be learning the levitation charm, Wingardium Leviosa, he announced, holding up his wand. Remember, it's all in the wrist. Swish and flick. Annalise watched as he demonstrated, sending a feather floating gracefully into the air. She couldn't wait to try it herself. She practiced the charm, whispering the incantation and concentrating hard. After a few attempts, her feather finally lifted off the table, hovering in the air. She grinned with pride, and as she looked around, she noticed Evan across the room, giving her a thumbs up. Nice work, he mouthed, grinning. Annalise felt a warm glow in her chest. She waved back, feeling a connection with him that went beyond just classmates. After Charms, they had Potions class with Professor Snape. His dark robes and piercing gaze made Annalise nervous, but she tried to focus as he explained how to brew a basic potion. Evan sat beside her, and they worked together, carefully following each step. There were a few close calls. Evan accidentally added too much of an ingredient, causing the potion to bubble over in a cloud of pink smoke, but they managed to finish without any disasters. As they left class, coughing and laughing, Evan turned to her with a grin. Well, we survived Snape's class without turning into toads. I'd call that a success. Annalise laughed, feeling lighter than she had in days. She had a friend, and together they could take on whatever Hogwarts threw at them. Chapter 4: The Secret Passage. One rainy afternoon, Annalise and Evan were exploring the castle when they stumbled upon a narrow hallway lined with old portraits. The paintings seemed to watch them as they walked, whispering amongst themselves. At the end of the hall, behind a thick tapestry, they discovered a hidden door that led down a twisting staircase. Think we should go in? Evan whispered, his eyes bright with excitement. Annalise nodded, her heart pounding with anticipation. They carefully stepped down the stairs, which led to a dimly lit room filled with bookshelves and strange, magical items. The air felt thick with enchantment, and in the center of the room they found an ancient, dusty book. The book was filled with notes about magical relics and spells that were thought to be long forgotten. One page caught Annalise's eye, a page describing an artifact hidden somewhere in Hogwarts, said to have the power to grant wishes to those with a pure heart. They exchanged a look, both feeling the same spark of excitement. This was a mystery worth solving, and they were determined to find the artifact before anyone else. Chapter 5: The Artifact's Power. Over the next few weeks, Annalise and Evan grew closer as they searched for clues about the artifact. They studied in the library, explored hidden rooms, and met in the common room late at night to share their discoveries. Their bond deepened with each adventure, and one evening, as they were sitting by the fire in the Ravenclaw common room, Evan looked at her, his face serious. "I'm really glad we met," he said softly. "I don't think I could do this alone." Annalise felt a warmth spread through her chest. "Me too," she replied, smiling. In that moment, she realized that Hogwarts had given her more than magic and adventure. It had given her a friend, and perhaps something even more special. Their story continued through late-night searches, magical mishaps, and close encounters. leading to a thrilling discovery of the artifact and a heartwarming realization that their bond was the greatest magic of all. Chapter 6, A Lesson in Courage. The following morning, Annalise hurried to her next lesson, Defense Against the Dark Arts with Professor Lupin. She'd heard from older students that he was kind but serious, a teacher who treated every student like a true witch or wizard, ready to learn how to defend themselves. The classroom had a cozy, mysterious feel, with shelves lined with oddities, small bottles, strange plants, and cages holding creatures Annalise had never seen. Professor Lupin, with his warm yet worn smile, welcomed them and introduced the day's lesson on boggarts. As he explained, a boggart was a shapeshifter that turned into a person's greatest fear. Annalise felt a knot form in her stomach. What if her fear was embarrassing? But Professor Lupin assured them, there's no shame in what you fear. Facing it helps us grow stronger, and laughter weakens a boggart. One by one, the students lined up to face the creature. Evan went first, and to Annalise's surprise, the boggart transformed into a terrifying spider. She saw him turn pale, but as he muttered, "Ridiculous," and waved his wand, the spider sprouted roller skates, wobbling comically before disappearing. Finally, it was Annalise's turn. She took a deep breath and stepped forward, wand ready. The boggart shifted, and she gasped as it transformed into a massive wave of water, roaring and crashing toward her. She'd always had a fear of drowning, and this brought it all back. But Professor Lupin's words echoed in her mind, and she pictured something silly, a tiny boat bobbing atop the wave with a friendly duck wearing a sailor hat. "Ridiculous," she shouted, her voice trembling. The wave shrank into a puddle with the tiny duck floating cheerfully. The class laughed, and Annalise felt her nerves melt away. As she took her seat, Evan leaned over. "Nice job," he whispered. "Didn't know you were afraid of waves." Annalise smiled, feeling a bond deepen between them. "Didn't know you were afraid of spiders," she whispered back, grinning. After class, as they walked to lunch, Annalise felt more confident, more capable. Hogwarts was full of challenges, but she was finding the courage to face them, and the friendship she shared with Evan made every moment feel like part of a grand adventure. Chapter 7, The Hidden Garden. One crisp afternoon, Annalise and Evan made their way to herbology, held in the greenhouse with Professor Sprout. The greenhouses were filled with magical plants, some harmless, some with vines that wriggled, and others with flowers that seemed to hum. Annalise marveled at the variety, wondering how so many magical plants could be hidden here. Professor Sprout introduced them to mandrakes that day, with their strange, wrinkled roots and the need for ear protection to avoid their shrill cries. Annalise slipped on her earmuffs, feeling the vibration of the plant's scream as she pulled it out of the soil. Beside her, Evan was struggling to keep his mandrake under control, its tiny root arms flailing. After class, Professor Sprout called them over. "If you're interested in plants, there's a little secret garden behind the greenhouses. Only those who truly love plants can find it." Intrigued, Annalise and Evan thanked her and decided to explore. They walked to the back of the greenhouses, searching until they saw a small ivy-covered door hidden in the vines. They glanced at each other, their eyes wide with excitement, and opened the door. Inside was a magical garden bathed in soft golden light, filled with rare enchanted plants that glowed, sparkled, and changed colors as they moved. They wandered through, enchanted by flowers that opened as they passed and leaves that whispered ancient secrets. In the center of the garden was a small pond, its surface as smooth as glass, reflecting the entire scene like a mirror. Annalise knelt by the pond, dipping her hand in. The water felt warm, soothing. "It's like this place is alive," she whispered, her voice filled with awe. Evan nodded, looking around. "It's peaceful. I didn't think there could be somewhere so calm in a place as wild as Hogwarts." They spent hours exploring, feeling a sense of wonder they hadn't experienced before. As the sun set, casting a warm glow over the garden, Annalise realized this hidden place was more than just a magical garden. It was a reminder of the beauty and secrets Hogwarts held, waiting to be discovered. Chapter 8, A Chase Through the Halls. A few days later, Annalise and Evan decided to meet in the library after dinner to research the artifact they'd read about. They quietly searched through old dusty tomes filled with tales of magical objects, and after hours of reading, they found a clue, a passage mentioning a silver pendant hidden within Hogwarts, one that only the worthy could find. Excited, they left the library, talking about where it might be. But as they turned the corner, they heard a snickering sound from above, a giggle they'd heard about but hoped to avoid. Peeves, the school's notorious poltergeist, was floating in midair holding a bucket of green slime. "Little Ravenclaws and Hufflepuffs sneaking about, eh?" he cackled, his eyes gleaming mischievously. "Run!" Evan whispered, grabbing Annalise's hand. They dashed down the hallway, but Peeves gave chase, laughing wildly and swooping down as he hurled slime at them. Annalise and Evan ducked and dodged, laughing even as they ran, slipping through corridors and ducking behind statues. Finally, they found themselves in an empty corridor with no exits in sight. Peeves floated above them, grinning triumphantly. "Gotcha now!" But at that moment, nearly headless Nick appeared, floating through the wall. "Peeves, leave these two alone," he said sternly, crossing his arms. Peeves frowned, clearly disappointed. "Oh, all right, Sir Nick, spoiling all my fun." With a last cackle, he disappeared through the wall. Annalise and Evan sighed with relief, thanking nearly headless Nick. The ghost chuckled and floated away, leaving the two of them to catch their breath. "That was close," Annalise laughed, her cheeks flushed. Evan grinned, his eyes bright with excitement. "You handled it like a pro." As they headed back to their dormitories, Annalise felt a sense of closeness with Evan she hadn't felt before. Hogwarts was full of surprises, but facing them together made every adventure feel magical. Chapter 9, The Mirror of Erised. One chilly evening, Annalise and Evan were exploring an empty corridor when they stumbled upon a large, dusty room. In the center stood a tall, ornate mirror with intricate carvings around its frame. "What do you think it is?" Evan asked, walking closer. Annalise shrugged, intrigued. They stepped in front of the mirror, and to her surprise, the reflection showed something entirely different from reality. She saw herself, standing with her friends and family, everyone laughing and happy. Beside her, Evan was gazing into the mirror, his expression soft. "What do you see?" she asked quietly. Evan hesitated, then whispered, "I see my family too, and I see you. We're all happy together." Annalise felt her cheeks warm as she looked at him. She realized that her friendship with Evan had become something deeper, something that made Hogwarts feel like home. For a moment, they stood in silence, watching their reflections in the mirror of Erised, feeling a sense of connection and warmth that filled the room like magic. Chapter 10, A Final Test. Near the end of the school year, Annalise and Evan received one final clue about the artifact. The Grey Lady appeared in the common room, her voice soft and proud. "Your courage and kindness have proven you worthy," she whispered. "Follow the path of stars, and you may find what you seek." That night, Annalise and Evan slipped out of their dormitories and followed a trail of tiny, sparkling lights that seemed to lead them through the castle. They found themselves in a small, hidden chamber beneath the astronomy tower, where an ancient pendant rested on a pedestal. As they reached for it, they felt a surge of warmth, as if the pendant was alive. They held it together, making a silent wish for the school to be protected, for their friends to be safe, and for their bond to last beyond their years at Hogwarts. With the pendant safely hidden once more, Annalise and Evan knew they had found something precious. Not just a magical object, but a memory that would last forever. As the year ended, Annalise and Evan shared a quiet moment by the lake, watching the sunset. They talked about their adventures, laughing and remembering every magical mishap and discovery. "I'm glad I met you," Evan said softly. "This year wouldn't have been the same without you." Annalise smiled, feeling the warmth of his friendship, and perhaps a spark of something more. "Me too," she replied, taking his hand. As they watched the stars reflect in the lake, Annalise knew that Hogwarts had given her more than magic and adventure. It had given her friendship, courage, and memories she would carry forever.